The members of the Twilight Quilters Guild of Norfolk County have just been thrilled to participate in this project with the Norfolk Remembers Committee. It all started in January 2016 when Heather King approached me to see whether our members might be interested in making a quilt to depict Norfolk's contribution to the war effort. We talked about it at Guild. We had an overwhelming number of members who wanted to participate in the project, and we set out to brainstorm on what ideas we had. The first thing we recognized is that we needed to be educated on the war. So we met with James Christensen of the Waterford Agricultural and Heritage Museum. James took us through what all had happened during the war and what Norfolk's contribution was as well. At the same point, he showed us a quilt that was made by the ladies in Port Rowan in 1917 as a Red Cross quilt. So we stepped back after that and we brainstormed what all we wanted to do, and we recognized that we really needed to do two quilts. We wanted to do an art quilt depicting what the soldiers had gone through and what impact it had on the Norfolk boys. And as well, we wanted to do a signature quilt reflecting the original signatures from their enlistment papers of Norfolk who passed away during the war. We have very much appreciated being involved in this project. It has been a very emotional project for all of the quilters involved, and we very much appreciate the opportunity that the Norfolk Remembers Committee had given us to do it. We would like to thank Grant Smith for writing the book, Norfolk Remembers the Great War. We would like to thank the committee for commissioning and financing the project, and we would really like to thank Lana Thompson of Quilt Junction for giving us financial support as well. We're hoping that through these quilts, soldiers continue to be remembered. The 20 quilters who worked on this project, we want to thank them as well. They put in untold hours and they certainly shared their talents, and we appreciate the effort. We hope you enjoy the quilts.
I got interested in this by actually going to a library meeting and seeing the original. And then I took all these lovely blocks that these women made and put them together and did the final binding, and totally enjoyed myself.
This quilt was exciting for me to do because it was a replication, so we were able to do something that was like what had taken place that other women who quilted had done in the past. And I hadn't embroidered in a long time, so it brought back my embroidery skills, and very proud of how it turned out.
What we created is taken from the design of the Red Cross quilt made by the ladies of Port Rowan in 1917. We took the signatures of the Norfolk Remembers the Great War, written by Grant Smith. They're enlistment signatures. They were transferred onto the fabric, and then the ladies of the Twilight Quilters Guild embroidered their names as they were from the signatures in the book. When it came time to hand quilt this quilt, the ladies set it up on a wooden frame in Gertrude Nix's house, used the original 1 1/4 inch grid that they would have used back in 1917. I think they also referred to this maybe as a nickel quilt. They would make these quilts. They would you would have to pay a nickel to have your family member or soldier's signature embroidered on the quilt, and once the quilt was done, they would then raffle it off. The nickels help pay for maybe supplies or fabric that they may have needed, and then the raffle money would go to the Red Cross to help with the war effort. Embroidering the names of the soldiers on the quilts, we also were reading the stories of the soldiers as we were embroidering their names. It meant a lot to us to get to know these people, these officers, enlisted men, medical personnel. There's 256 soldiers who died and 1 woman. It was very touching. I wish I had paid more attention to history in high school. This was a real learning experience, and I think it was a real learning experience and taught us about the great loss just in Norfolk County alone.
I had the privilege of working on this beautiful reproduction quilt, and it was a very wonderful and emotional experience. The sacrifice that these men and their families made for our country and our people is just remarkable, and it brought me closer to that. What really went through my mind as I was working on the quilt, I believe a signature is a very personal thing. I would read the story of the soldier prior to working on his name, and thought about him through the whole stitching process. Both my parents had very good writing skills, so each of these signatures I knew was very personal to these men, and I tried my best to replicate it so that their legacy could live on in the stitches. Very, very brave men, and like I said, very, very emotional process, and I enjoyed it very much.
Well, as a member of our quilting guild, I was asked, along with all the rest of our group, if we'd like to participate. And I was hesitant because I'm not from here and I have no ties. And I thought, this might be nice to get involved and learn from everybody. And I sat last summer in my backyard and I did embroidery, and it brought tears to my eyes because I was also reading the stories about these young boys, and to me it just was heartbreaking because as a mom, we know that our children could have been involved, and just reading all their stories and doing all their names, it was very touching and kept bringing tears to my eyes, and I'd stop. And then another day I'd collect my thoughts and then I go back and do the embroidery, and I really enjoyed it. And then the art quilt, I worked on that with Jan and Terry, and we really got involved and worked hard and kept humming and hawing and taking it apart and working on it again. And we really enjoyed it, and I know I did certainly. I think we've done very well.
When I was first asked to be a part of this wonderful project, I was very, very honored. And when I sat and had the distinct pleasure of slowly, methodically reading the stories of each of the individual soldiers, sons, brothers, cousins, fathers from Norfolk County, it made me even more in touch with the community I've grown to love. One of the things that I did notice was the sacrifice that has been made by so many in such tiny little areas in this wonderful county of Norfolk. 3 in particular are from one tiny hamlet of Houghton, and they are 3 brothers. 2 were killed in Vimy Ridge on the same day. They were Arthur, William, and Leslie West. I can only imagine what that must have been like for the family and the close-knit communities in Norfolk, and made me realize the sacrifice that so many have made and are still making today.